Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you guys about the sniper hold, right? There's two techniques that I use. One I refer to as a half Nelson, where you basically put your hand on your arm here, face on the gun, and you kind of basically wedge the stock between your wrist and your face, okay? We'll do it on the table so you guys can see. So if I'm here, I'm going to put my hand on my arm over here, put my face on the gun, and then I can basically pull my arm slightly in this direction and push my face slightly in the opposite direction to wedge the stock into position so that it doesn't move, okay? And I call this the half Nelson method because it kind of looks like you're holding somebody in a half Nelson. That's just how I refer to it. Now, I don't always use that. The reason why I don't use this is, especially if you're shooting like with a t-shirt like this, if you do a lot of shooting, this does beat up this area a little bit over here, right? So that can be a little hard on the that arm, on the wrist area over here, if you're really cranking down hard, trying to basically lock the gun into position. If you got like a jacket or even a long sleeve or a glove that comes a little further down, that's not going to be an issue, right? But if you're doing it barehanded, like a bare arm like this, you may start to feel it after a while, okay? So the other technique that I also use, which I find a little bit more comfortable, right, is I will take the webbing of my hand and I'll put that in the stock over here and pull that into the pocket, right? So what I'm doing with my shoulders, I'm bringing my shoulder forward to create a pocket. I'm doing that with both techniques, right? I'm bringing my shoulder forward to create a pocket, right? So it doesn't matter if my hand's on my arm like this, I'm bringing it forward, or if I'm holding it here, same thing, I'm creating a pocket to lock the stock in position. So when the gun's here, right, and you're pulling this into your body, this should not be able to move. That should be locked into position. So pull it there, pull this in, and I'll point this elbow towards my target, right? So as I point bring my elbow forward towards the center, this hand moves back and it compresses the rifle into my chest, okay? So there's different style stocks that can aid you in this or make it more difficult for you. I tend to like these triangle ones here. The reason is because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put a sandbag or sand sock in the back here, and I can use this angle over here to to basically elevate the gun, right? So that's one of the ways that I will use this. But they have other designs. They got like boot designs, and so that's one of the things you want to be aware of. One of the things I do not like is the stocks that have the adjustment button exposed, like on the bottom over here, right? Because if this button is not up there, if it's down here somewhere, when you put your hand here or here, that's going to hit it. Okay, so you want the button in a position, right? The adjustment lever over here in a position where it's not going to hit your arm or the webbing of your hand when you hold it, right? So that's why one of the things I look for in a stock. Okay, so those are the two. Those are the two methods that I use. I refer to them as a sniper hold. Let's talk a little bit more about precision shooting at a distance. Some of the techniques that I use. First of all, when you're shooting, this is the part that goes on your trigger, right? That's the most sensitive part of your finger. That's the part that goes on the trigger. And before I do any live fire, right, because I own lots of guns, they all got different triggers. What I want to do is I want to dry fire this a few times so I know what the trigger is going to feel like, okay? Because I got, this one is a mil-spec 7-pound trigger. I've got 3.5-pound match grade triggers. I got triggers that have some take up. So you got to know what to expect. And the truth is that I shoot a mil-spec trigger pretty much as good as a match grade trigger. The difference is, well, let's say with a mil-spec trigger, I just have to work a little bit harder, okay? The match trigger, the lighter trigger, makes it a little bit easier, but I find that I can get just as good accuracy out of the mil-spec triggers, okay? For a lot of applications, I prefer the mil-spec triggers because, especially let's say in the wintertime where I'm wearing thick winter gloves, right? The temperature here sometimes drops to -10 degrees. I'm still out here shooting, okay? So with thick insulated gloves, I don't want a mass grade trigger. I want a 7-pound trigger that I can feel through the gloves. Okay, so that's a different consideration for you guys. You know, again, depends on where you are, what your environment is, and what kind of shooting you're going to be doing. So the next thing I want to talk about is your breath control, which a lot of times is misunderstood, because I've had people that have been shooting for many years, and they'll tell me that when they're shooting standing, right, and coming out of a holster, they hold their breath before they take a shot, which makes no sense to me, because if you're shooting standing, the rest of your body is going to be moving slightly more than you're breathing anyway. Okay, so the breath control only makes a difference if the rest of your body is stabilized. So only if you're prone or benched, you know, is it really going to make a difference. Okay, so as far as the breath control, you know, what I'll do is I'll either hold my breath. Okay, that's what I generally do if I need to. I'll talk about that in a second. Or I'll exhale. So I can either go, all right, or I can go. Okay, so I can do it either way. But here's the thing: a lot of times, and I'll be shooting, let's say 300 yards. If I'm fairly relaxed, I put my reticle or my dot on the target, and my reticle is still, you know, I'll just continue breathing normal. If I'm, you know, I mean, obviously, I'll keep breathing at a slow, steady rate. I'll take my shot and I'll still hit my target. Okay, so I'll use the breath control to the extent that I need to use it. Okay, if my reticle is moving on the target, so if I got, let's say, my reticle on my target here, and I see that it's moving a little bit, I got to figure out what I got to do to stabilize it. Okay, so I might need to crank down a little bit harder on the gun, hold my breath, but this is now we're talking about understanding what you're doing, understanding the things that are actually going to help you. Right? It makes no sense to do stuff if you know if it's not going to actually serve a purpose. Okay. For example, if the gun is mounted on a on a tripod that's like completely immovable, it makes no difference if, you know, you can't move it. It makes no difference if you hold your breath, right? So you want to do things that are actually going to make a difference. The most important thing for shooting is the follow through. That's really the thing that makes the most difference for me if I hit the target or miss the target. Okay, so with the follow through, again, I put my reticle and my dot on the target, and what I want to see when I pull my trigger, whether it's dry fire or live fire, when I press my trigger, let's say this is where my dot is, or my reticle, boom, or click if I'm dry firing, click, or boom, 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 boom. What I don't want to see is boom, 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 boom. I don't want my reticle to move off the target when the gun goes bang. Okay, now it's going to lift up a little bit from the recoil, boom, boom. It should lift up a little bit and come right back down on the same spot. It won't always do it, but that's the goal. Okay, because sometimes it'll move a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and I'll still hit my target. But in the next shot, right? Because if I see that I'm pulling the trigger and it's going, you know, if it's going boom, 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 it's going to the left, I know I got to apply a little bit more pressure, left, right, you know, on the trigger to try and keep that reticle centered. Okay, so that, to me, that's like the most important part of precision shooting. The follow through and paying attention to the reticle or the dot for feedback. Okay, that's going to tell you if what you're doing wrong. Okay, if you see it moving, you got to fix that. You should be able to call your shots before they even get down there. You should know if you're going to hit it, because if you're going boom, boom, bullet's going out here somewhere. Okay, so pay attention to the reticle. That's going to give you the information that you need to correct yourself. Usually it's just a finger pull issue. You might be pulling to the left, pulling to the right, or you may need to stabilize the gun, or you may need to control your breathing, or you might need to get yourself into a better position, right? You might be on a rock or something that's making you uncomfortable. So these are all things that you got to consider. One of the things I want to mention, if you're shooting a red dot, okay, especially something that has a big window like this Holosun 510C, or if you're shooting something like an EOTech, make sure that your dot is centered in the glass, because a lot of times, you know, when you come up here, you know, if we're moving and shooting, the dot may not be centered at close distance like this over here. You know, if I get that dot on the target, you know, it doesn't matter if it's in the way up high in the corner. I'm still gonna hit it. But if you're shooting, let's say 200, 300, 400 yards, the dot needs to be in the center because there is a slight parallax difference. Now, you got a magnifier behind that. That kind of helps keep you honest, because if you're not perfectly centered, you're going to start seeing some shadow. Also, if you got a scope, you know, again, you'll start seeing a shadow if you're not centered. So that's a little bit less of an issue with that. But if you've got a red dot and that's all you've got, and you're trying to shoot distance, and make sure that dot is centered. In fact, because here's the thing, when you zeroed the rifle, right, maybe you weren't perfectly centered. So if you have a big optic like this that has a big window, and you're used to shooting this with the reticle, with the dot, you know, let's say slightly high left or whatever, you know, if that's how you zeroed it, and then when you go to take your long distance shot, you're now like, you're thinking, you're like, okay, I need to take a long distance shot. I got to make sure I'm perfectly centered. You're gonna miss, because that's not how you originally zeroed the rifle. So you gotta zero your red dot with the dot perfectly centered in the center of your window, and then also take your distance shots with a red dot with that dot also centered. Okay, so these are some things for you guys to consider. So again, going back, the purpose of this was to just show you guys the two holds that I'll use. The relaxed one, the easy one, is I'll just put the webbing here, point my elbow forward towards the target, create a pocket, pull this into the pocket, take my shot like that. It's a little bit more relaxed because, you know, basically you got the soft part on the stock over here. And the other one is where I put my hand on my arm here, and basically I'm pulling my arm up this way while pushing my head down that way to lock the gun into position. Okay, and you know, that's the other hold that I use. This does beat up your wrist a little bit over here, but hey, listen, I use whatever I need to use. If I'm using this hold and I'm not satisfied, I see that, you know, I'm not controlling the gun well enough, I'll switch to the other hold. Or before I take the shot, like I'll look at my reticle. If I see that my reticle is not steady, it's not like perfectly still on the target, if it's moving around like that, you gotta fix that before you even take the shot. So you may need to reposition yourself. Maybe you're on a rock or something, or you might need to reposition yourself. You might need to change your hold back over here. You know, there might be something on your body, like you might have a piece of your clothing or equipment that's making you uncomfortable. You need to fix that so that before you take your shot, your reticle is on the target and it is comfortably still, right? You're not struggling to keep it still, right? It's not going like that, and then you gotta struggle to try and, you know, you should be able to relax, somewhat relax behind the gun, and for that reticle or dot to stay still on your target. So a couple of things for you guys to think about. Drop some comments below. If you guys got some other ideas or some other techniques that work for you, please let me know. I don't pretend to know everything. I'm just telling you guys the stuff that works for me. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon.